Hello friends, welcome back. Today we are going to learn how to make a portrait in an easy manner, in a simple way and more accurate. Okay, so let's start. Remember the days of our earlier junior classes when we used to draw by joining the dots, and the technique that we are going to learn today is the same, joining the dots. The difference between then and now is that today we are not only going to join the dots, but we also will have to create the dots. And don't you worry, if you watch and listen carefully, it will be a piece of cake for you. Be sure about that. Okay, so this is my subject for today. It's a print that I have taken out from my printer. First and foremost thing that you need to do is you need to divide the portrait or the subject that you're going to make into a graph of squares. So here I have taken 1 inch squares of graph, which are 6 in numbers, 1 2 3 4 5 6 horizontally and 1 2 3 4 5 6 vertically. So 6 by 6 inches of a graph having 1 inch by 1 inch squares. And it is not mandatory that you should have equal number of squares horizontally as well as vertically. It could be 8 or 7 squares horizontally, it could be more on the vertical side, more, or doesn't matter at all, depends on the subject matter that you are going to make. Suppose this was slightly longer portrait, then we would have required maybe 2 or 3 more squares. And similarly, if had it been the printout or the subject was maybe slightly wider, you would need 6 squares vertically and about 7 8 9 squares horizontally. Doesn't matter at all. What matters is that you need to make squares equal sizes and accurate graph. Geometrically, the graph should be accurate. More accurate your graph, more accurate will be your portrait, the outcome. Okay, so we have a graph here of 6 squares horizontally and 6 squares vertically. Fine. We need to do the same thing on a drawing sheet, the canvas, the paper, whatever medium that you are using. You need to make the same graph, same numbers of squares vertically as well as horizontally. Okay, so here I have made this graph, which is again let's number them. I have numbered the graphs on the subject print to make it easier for us to identify the squares wherever we are working on subsequently. So 1 2 3 4 5 6, 1 2 3 4 5 6. In the same order you need to number the graphs. So it is better if you leave some margin on all 4 sides and plan your drawing or sketching or portrait accordingly. So I've left the margins on all the 4 sides. We have lot of space here. So in sync with the subject print, we need to number let's number the columns first. 1 2 3 4 5 6. How this will help, you'll come to know in a little while, but I assure you this is important. This will save your time and confusion later on when we go into the sketching and portrait building. Okay, vertically 1 2 3 4 5 and 6. Done? Fine. Now we have numbers on the subject print corresponding with the numbers, square numbers or column or row numbers on the drawing sheet. Fine. Wherever you need to start from, you need to identify that square. For example, if I plan to start the drawing this way, I'll take the face cut this way. So I'll start from here. So we need to identify this block, which will be, if you see the columns, this is the second column, right? Second column, and row, this is the third row. Fine. So second column, third row, wherever this is sort of, you can say, coordinate. So you need to find the same coordinate on your drawing sheet. So it was second column and third row. So this is the box that we need to start with. Okay, so let's get on with the actual drawing. So this is the block that we are to begin with. So we need to identify where the outline of the face coincides with this line of this block, because this will become a point and this is where we are going to start from. So you need to identify the point. So this point is, if we take this distance, this is the half. You can further mark with your pencil to further divide the block, the square, into smaller parts. You can halve the square again. So this becomes a smaller square. Getting my point? So this becomes a yet smaller squares, or a graph within a graph within a block. So this will make things slightly easier for you. How? Now if we take this line and this is where we need to start from, then you need to approximately you need to judge how much this distance is, or how much is this point away from this point. We'll take it from left to right. So distance from here to here you'll need to judge. So it will be a rough estimate for you to decide. Maybe this is about one third of this whole line. So accordingly you make a mark on the graph in the drawing sheet, and when you divide the square further into smaller parts, a smaller graph, then it becomes slightly more easy. Now we have to judge where this point lies within this distance, not this, but half of this distance. Hold on, I'll make the marks more prominent so that it will be easy for you to see and understand. So this line, you can see this mark. Okay, this is about half of this line, this mark, and then further now this distance, we take half of it and make a mark. So now we have divided the square, this one square, further into smaller part, which will help us accurately pinpoint the place, the point from where we need to start the drawing. So this was the point. If you see this line, I had identified where we need to begin, or I will begin this drawing or sketch or portrait. So this was the point. Now where does this lie? You understand? The point that we needed to start lied here when we divided this line again into half. Now this point is, as you can see, half of the distance between this point and this point, right? You got it? Now this is much more accurate. So now we know that if we divide this line into 4 equal parts, on the second part of this line, second equal part of this line, the point we need to begin with the drawing lies almost exactly half of the distance. The point where we need to begin the drawing lies half the distance of these 2 points. It is a better figure or number for us to start our drawing on the drawing sheet, which is half of the second part, 1 2 3 4, half of the second part of the division. So that is where we need to start the drawing. I hope you get this much very clear. So we come back to our drawing. This was the block we need to start with, and this is the line we worked on the subject print. So what we did on the subject print, exactly the same we are going to do here. We divide this line into half and then further half, right? And if you can recall, the point where we needed to start the drawing lied on the second division, half of the second division. And if you can recall, the point where we needed to start the drawing lied between the second division, and it was half of the second division. So now we know we need to start the drawing from here. So here, this is where now where to end it on this square. We need to, so now we know we need to start the drawing from this point. So we have this point here. So now we have a point where we know we need to start the drawing from. Now coming back, working on the same square, we need to know where we need to end that line. The outline of the face, we need to make a mark here, search for a mark here on this line where this line is going to join. So again, we take the subject print, and this is where the outline of the face coincides with the lower line of the square. Now exactly what we did earlier, we'll do the same thing here. This is the line, half of this line, half of this line, we divide it into half, and then again half will be divided further into half, which will make it 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, like that. So we don't need this part as yet. So working on the first division and second division, so you see this face, the outline of the face is almost half of the whole line, which is at the 1/4 of the whole line. So now we have a point here on the bottom line of the square. So coming back to the drawing, this was the line we are working on, half of this line, and then again we divide the half further into two equal parts, and now we have this 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, and this is where we needed to end the drawing. So we have 2 points here. This was 1 point and this is another point. So we start from here, and it is not that you join the 2 points with a straight line. Obviously this is not geometry that we are working on. This is art. This is a portrait, a sketch we are making. So what you need to ascertain is that moving from this point to this point, you need to ascertain the shape of the outline. You need to ascertain the path of the outline. Now, to further help your course, what you can do is you can further divide. Now we have divided the lines. You can go ahead and divide the square into smaller squares. This part of the line, half of this line was this, and then further half of this distance would be this. So as you can see, the outline of the face lies at 1/4 of this whole line, moving from left to right. Got it? So what we have now is another point. So what we do, this was half. So on the subject print, it was midway of half of this full line. So half and midway of this, which is 1/4. So we have now 1 point, 2 point, and 3 points. So these are the 3 points that we have within 1 inch of space. So what do you say? Should it be easy for you to connect these 3 points? So instead of now working on an approximation, you have 3 definite points to connect. So a little curvature here. So that will be your observation. You need to see how the curve is moving across the points, and accordingly you can make. There will be further when we finalize it, we could make some alterations, but for sketching it will be roughly, you should connect the points but not with a straight line, with slightly curvatures, as you can observe on the subject print. So what do you think? Isn't it much more easier? Now this process, this technique will make your task much more simpler, much more easy, and the semblance to the actual photograph, actual image would be much more. The outcome will be much more accurate. And similarly, you need to place the points on all the blocks wherever the path of the drawing is taking you. And when you connect the dots, eventually you will come out with a drawing, a sketch which is very much in semblance with the actual photograph. If you have any questions, any doubts about what we did today, you can always put in your queries in the description, and I'll be happy to reply to them. And also I would love to see your works, friends. Thank you. Have a nice day. Take care.